Welcome friends to another r/am I the jerk here video. Would you be the jerk for forcing someone to eat spicy food? We'll find out, but first a story from Pinky Rye. Am I the jerk for ignoring my boss and blocking his number on my vacation? My boyfriend, 29-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old female, are currently long distance. We take turns visiting each other. He came to see me after almost 2 months of not seeing each other. We finally were to make plans. I requested to have 5 days off, was approved for my job. I've worked there for 6 years. It was after my shift and I was heading out quickly. I had to pick my boyfriend up from the airport. I clocked out, and while I was saying bye to everyone, my new boss of 2 weeks stopped me and he asked if I could cover a shift since one of my coworkers called in sick. We're short-staffed and he needs me to stay for a couple hours more. I had a 10-hour shift. I was exhausted. I responded, "No, I'm sorry, but I'm unable to and I can't stay late. I've covered it before in the past. I don't mind, but I had somewhere to be." I mentioned I was picking up someone at the airport. He told me they could take an Uber. My boyfriend wouldn't be happy if I did with him. Also, he has no key to my apartment. No one else wanted to stay, and I was the third person he asked to that said no. I said, "Sorry, I can't just tonight." Another time, he called me a lousy worker and I'm not a team player. I said, "Guess I'm not a team player," and I walked past him. I called out, "I'll see him in 5 days." While driving to the airport, I kept getting calls and texts from him. It got so bad that I had to pull over to turn off my phone. My boss wanted me to come back to work. I had to turn on my phone so my boyfriend could contact me. My phone was flooded with text messages. Ding after ding. I think I got close to 15 texts. I blocked his number. I was so happy to see my boyfriend. I was getting emails from my boss constantly when it was supposed to be my time off. I didn't respond to, and I rarely take vacation. 1, he was asking me stuff that I didn't know the answer to. 2nd, even if I did, I'm not telling him. I don't know, I was starting to get petty. I still had fun with my boyfriend. When I went to work, my boss called me into his office. He blew up at me for being unprofessional, and he's still new to this job. I should have helped or at least replied to the emails. I responded other people could have helped him. It's not my responsibility when it's my vacation time. I got my first write-up ever. Is this something I'm missing? Did I do something inherently wrong here? I'm actually considering to report him. He's still new to this job. Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk, and would you guys agree with me when I say that the only way OP is wrong here is the fact that they haven't already committed to reporting this guy? Would you guys agree with me when I say it doesn't matter that he's new here? The way the boss acted here is unreasonable and deserves to be reported right away? Let me know if you agree with me in the comments down below. Our next story is from Lionfrant. Am I the jerk for wearing the same color as the bride as a wedding harpist and not changing? So I, female 18, was asked to play the harp at a friend of my father's wedding. Normally I would ask for payment beforehand, but since it was a family friend, they asked if they could just pay me at the reception, and I told them yes. The dates worked out for me, and it was set in a church about an hour from my house. I showed the dress I planned to wear to the bride when we went over the music she wanted and at the rehearsal, but only on a hanger. It looks like it would be ugly on a hanger as it's just navy blue with long sleeves and floor length, but it's surprisingly pretty. I got to the venue about 4 hours early, so my harp would have the time to acclimate to the room. When I got there, the bride's mother came to give me my corsage, and when she saw me, she demanded I change my dress. I laughed because I've known her for years, and then realized she wasn't joking. I asked what was wrong with it, and she said that the bride went with a non-traditional dress that was also navy blue. I panicked a little because this is her wedding and I felt really bad, but she and her groom had approved it twice. I told the mother, and she asked if I had any other color I could change into. I don't bring extra dresses unless my dress somehow doesn't get approved beforehand, so I didn't. She then told me to go to the bridal shop 20 minutes away and buy a new dress. I refused because those dresses would cost about what I was getting paid for this wedding, and I told her I couldn't afford it. I felt bad, but she begrudgingly walked away. The actual wedding went smoothly, and after everyone else had left the church and congratulated the bride, I stopped to talk to her. I explained what the mother-in-law had said, and she said that it was fine and that they weren't thinking when they approved my dress. At the reception, when I talked to her mother-in-law about payment, she refused to pay me. I didn't want to cause a scene, but the bride came over and heard us talking. This time, she was also upset with me and also refused to pay me. I didn't know what to do. As my parents were busy and couldn't attend this wedding, I didn't have anyone there to back me up. A lot of people assume harpists come from a lot of money because how expensive harps are, but I've been renting a harp since 4th grade, and when my teacher passed, we bought it for an amazing deal. I also charge a lot less than most musicians would, but I have a college payment due in a few days, and I can't afford it. I got my parents involved when I got home, and my dad talked to his friend, the father of the groom, who was there when they approved the dress, and he got the payment to me. I still feel really bad, but I don't think there was anything I could have done. Should I have just sucked it up and bought a new dress? Am I the jerk? I think OP is clearly not the jerk here. The bride and groom approved the dress twice. If there's any more clearance, what could it possibly have been? There was no responsibility to go blow your money on a new dress last second for them because they screwed up, and OP was definitely entitled to their money. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from Soap Bubble Writer. Am I the jerk for asking a dad of a young kid why did he bring his child to the hospital instead of letting them suffer? I know it sounds atrocious, but hear me out. I, female 26, was waiting for a friend to finish work so we could go and grab dinner. She works in a children's hospital, not medical or care staff, so her working hours are pretty standard. It was a warm day, so instead of waiting for her inside, I decided to sit on the bench outside just right in front of the entrance. A man and a woman show up, a woman carries a girl inside, a man with a 4 or 5-year-old boy remains to wait outside. 10 or so minutes in, a boy gets up from the phone he was playing with and starts throwing pebbles at pigeons. When they flew away, he runs up to the flowers that were planted there and starts purposefully stomping on them, raising his legs unnaturally high in a deliberate stomping motion. You could see it was malicious, not just running around and accidentally running into the flowers. I hollered at the kid and asked what he thinks he's doing to those flowers. The kid immediately gets scared. I don't deny, even though I wasn't loud, my tone was strict, and starts crying. His dad turns to me and starts his speech about how I just scared his child and his kid was just playing, yada yada. I told him that if he can't watch his kid, he shouldn't be surprised when other people do that for him. And others are not always going to be nice when drawing boundaries for an unruly rascal. Then he drops the gem of his brilliant mind. What does it matter? It's just flowers. They're gonna wilt anyway. Let the kid play. I just lost it in that moment and asked if it was his daughter a woman carried inside. He said it was. So I asked her, why did he bring her to the hospital instead of letting her suffer at home? All people will die anyways, so why does it matter? He didn't say much after that, grabbed his son and went inside, visibly offended. My friend showed up in a couple of minutes and that was the end of it all. I thought I was absolutely right with what I said, until later in the evening when I relayed everything to my mom, and she said that I shouldn't have asked a dad why, basically, he doesn't let his kid die. So Reddit, I'm curious, am I the jerk? It's definitely a touchy subject, but I don't think OP's the jerk for what they said. It's a bit of a lot, but it really does line the frame of thinking that this dad was displaying. I don't know, I keep thinking about it, and considering it was a situation where the kid was carried into the hospital, maybe it was a subject in general that should have just been out of bounds to ever mention. What do you guys think? Was OP the jerk here for making this analogy? Let me know. This next story is from It Wasn't I. Am I the jerk for giving my girlfriend less food than me when I cook? So I, male 26, am 6'2", 220 pounds. I'm being called a jerk by my girlfriend, who's female 23, 5'3", and maybe 130 pounds, for not making our plates the same amount when I cook for us or make our plates. She says I should be making even amounts of food for both of us. And I say that she doesn't need as much as I do because she doesn't go to the gym and she's much smaller, so she needs less food just to stay alive than I do, all things being equal. Also, it's not as if I'm starving her or giving her 1/10 of what I'm eating. It might be like half the amount of fries if we're having burgers or something. I feel like the stance is reasonable, but I wanted to ask, am I the jerk? I think OP is the jerk here only because the girlfriend said that they wanted the same amount that they eat, and while OP doesn't necessarily agree with the amount that they would be eating, it's what the girlfriend wants. If they've had this discussion and they explained it to each other and the girlfriend still wants as much food as OP's eating, then I think if OP keeps serving less food to her and ignoring their wishes and what they're expressing, then yeah, they're the jerk. This next story is from Brenda. Am I the jerk for leaving home because my mom is pregnant again? For context, me, 18-year-old female, always did the chores in my house. My mom is kind of obsessed with cleaning, so we were always cleaning up. I never complained because I understood that helping is important and she could never do those things alone. The biggest problem was my stepbrother and stepfather. They never cleaned anything, never cooked or washed anything, and their excuse was, "Women do house chores way better than men." And my mother always agreed with that, and even fought with me for not cleaning things for them sometimes. Anyways, this never changed. Since I was 10 years old, I cooked and cleaned for everyone without complaining. When I was 13, my mom had a baby, and suddenly I was a maid and a babysitter, and again, I didn't really complain about the situation. But as a teenager, I wanted to go out with my friends. And when I got older, I really wanted to have a job. But since I had to take care of my baby brother while my parents were working or were busy with other things, the thing is, my stepbrother and stepfather never take care of the baby. And sometimes I needed to cancel plans to stay with him because I was his second mother. I even started studying at night because I needed to stay with him during the day. So I was cleaning, cooking, babysitting, and trying to study, and when I didn't do all the chores that my mother asked me, she would fight with me and call me words like useless, lazy. I never complained about anything, just accepted and kept living. Everything changed last month when we were having lunch with my family and my boyfriend was with us. My mother said she had a big thing to tell us all. She was pregnant again. At that moment, I felt like crying and screaming, but I respected their moment of happiness. My boyfriend noticed that I wasn't happy like them. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't jealous of attention or anything. I was sad because I knew I would be stuck at home and now taking care of 2 kids, a toddler and a newborn, and I didn't choose to be this. I don't even want to be a mom. I don't want this to become my life. I became the mom of my brother, and now I would be the mother of this new kid. At night, after all this, me and my boyfriend talked, and he said that I could live with him and his family until I got a job, and me and him could pay for somewhere else to live. I agreed. When I told my mother about this, she shouted at me, calling me unfair and selfish. She needed me to take care of her kids for her and do the chores. So I said I was not a maid and I was not the mother of her children. After the fight, I took all my stuff and started living in my boyfriend's house. My family and I haven't talked since this. I think I'm kinda right at a certain point, but I really need some other people's opinion. Am I the jerk? OP is clearly not the jerk. In no way should they be saddled for the rest of their free life to be the babysitter, the mother, the caretaker, the maid of these kids who aren't even theirs. This is another one of those situations where if it makes total sense for you to do that or you want to do that, bless you, you have a great heart. But you also have a great heart if you want to live your own life and do things for yourself. At the end of the day, it's not OP's responsibility and they shouldn't feel bad for leaving. Our next story is from 20 Problems. Am I the jerk for forcing my boyfriend to eat spicy and gross food? I, 23-year-old female, decided to introduce my boyfriend, 26-year-old male, to my parents over dinner. My boyfriend is by no means a picky eater. He's eaten snails, intestines, chicken feet, etc. previously. He also has a spice tolerance that rivals mine. He can eat 3 times the buldak without even breaking a sweat, and even eats ghost pepper noodles for fun. I tell my mom that she doesn't have to make it less spicier for my boyfriend or less westernized. Westernized equals no animal organs, no animal brain, no eyes, less spices. More palatable to a picky eater, basically. We all start eating, except for my boyfriend who's picking at his food. My mom serves him the best pieces of fish and chicken. Instead of eating it, he just picks off the flesh from the bones, discards the bones, and pats the oil off the fish. I don't get why he's just playing with the food because my dad's obviously getting a bit ticked off when my boyfriend hasn't taken a single bite of the food except for the rice 10 minutes into the meal. I picked up the chicken from his plate and fed it to him. He makes a gagging sound over Malabari chicken stew. He's getting on my last nerve by now, so I whisper in his ear that he has to start eating the freaking food or else he's sleeping on the couch tonight. He finally starts eating, obviously unwilling, but he's still eating nonetheless. He tries out everything, gags a couple of times, leaves a lot on his plate still. and then announces that he's done with the meal. I tell my parents that he has gastric issues, but we didn't want to upset them by not coming today. They nodded, fairly sure they knew it was just an excuse, but they didn't press the issue, and just told my boyfriend to have a good night. We took the cue and left, and almost immediately got into an argument in the car. I asked him what the freak he was doing after my mom made such a great meal for him. He asked me why I forced him to eat all that gross and overtly spicy food. He asked me if I was trying to poison him. I was taken aback. He told me it doesn't matter what he normally eats. I forced him to eat things against his will on the pretense of manners, and that I needed to change that. I don't know if I should apologize to him because I don't know who's in the wrong here. Am I the jerk? I think OP is not the jerk. I think if you expect them to continue to eat stuff after gagging would make you a jerk, but I think overall, if they're having like that much of an issue and they don't want to eat the food, maybe they should just be honest and say so, rather than acting like a kid who doesn't know how to say anything and just twirls their spoon around their plate. Our next story is from NoLettuce5479. Am I the jerk for grounding my daughters? 16-year-old female, 15-year-old female. I've been a single dad for about 12 years. Their mom's alive, but it's not in their life. A few days ago, I came home to them screaming at each other in the hallway. Amber, my 15-year-old, was accusing Bridget, my 16-year-old, of trying to steal money from Amber's money that they can take on an upcoming date. Bridget claimed she was looking for her car keys, but that excuse fell apart when the keys were on a table next to her bed. When she was finally cornered, Bridget admitted to taking money but followed up with, "I wasn't going to take a bunch." I grounded Bridget for 2 weeks. As I'm grounding Bridget, Amber rolls her eyes and tells me 2 weeks isn't enough. I felt like I was being disrespected and undermined, so I grounded her for 2 as well. When I was talking to my sister about this fiasco, she thinks I mismanaged it, explaining that not only did Bridget steal, she then lied about the stealing, then tried to justify it. She thinks I was the jerk for grounding Amber at all. Am I the jerk? I think OP is the jerk. I've never been a fan of this kind of approach of handling things, and I think acting like this with kids is a surefire way to always have a grudge held against you. Just fiery and unnecessarily reactive. Like, just stop for a moment and look at the situation. Amber was stolen from, witness them getting stolen from, witness Bridget lying. They're upset, they're impassioned. Seeing them get 2 weeks, they probably felt like they deserved 2 years at that point. Just be able to process that they're upset. They never said you were doing a bad job at parenting, and just let it go. If anything, I think OP owes Amber an apology, and I'm not sure Amber's going to get it. This next story is from H-Sub-Zero. Am I the jerk for not driving my boyfriend home in the middle of the night? While spending the night, my boyfriend will sometimes wake me up in the middle of the night and say his feet are swelling due to an allergen in my room. We've been dating for a year, and this has been going on for 5 months. Prior to 5 months ago, this didn't happen. In order to accommodate his allergy, I've had my carpets professionally cleaned 5 times. Purchased all new bedding, purchased air filters, purchased a new couch for my living room, and most recently, had hardwood floors put in to replace the carpeted rooms. My boyfriend owns a house with his ex-girlfriend, who he's still living with, so going to his house is not an option. When his feet swell, it's in the middle of the night. He wakes me up and usually he'll then leave. It's almost always dramatic and can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours before he decides he's going home. I have a demanding job as a director of multiple programs, and I've told him I can't be woken up in the middle of the night. It negatively impacts my ability to work. Since getting the hardwood floors put in a couple of weeks ago, his allergies have subsided. A couple of days ago, he wanted to spend the night and asked if I could pick him up because he was having car issues. He lives 40 minutes away. That night, I took NyQuil and put in earplugs because I had an important meeting in the morning and could not risk not getting sleep. Side note, my 9-year-old had fallen asleep on the couch while we were watching a movie. That night around 2 a.m., I woke up to him making loud noises, opening and shutting my windows and doors. I ignored it. He got louder and then told me his feet were swelling. I told him I would move my 9-year-old to her room so he could sleep on the couch. He said no. I told him he could sleep in my 9-year-old's room. He said no. He said he might sleep in my car. I fell back asleep. I didn't offer to drive him home. When I woke the next morning, there was a string of texts throughout the night asking to be driven home as soon as possible. He had slept in my car. I didn't want to wake him, so I poured a cup of coffee and started getting ready for work. I sent him a text that I would take him home as soon as I got dressed. I heard the car turn on, so I went out to the garage. He was angry and accused me of just letting him stay in the car while I was drinking coffee. He then started accusing me of purposely letting allergens in my room. He said my behaviors prove I don't care about his allergies and he was done spending the night because I made it impossible for him to do so. He said my behaviors prove I don't care about him and that if I did, I would make sure my room would be allergen-free for him. Am I the jerk? I don't know what more OP can possibly do here. I think this dude just has some kind of medical condition or something that's going on that isn't allergies, because clearly OP made every effort they could to curb this issue. If this guy wants to volunteer to point out how OP could correct these things, that could be a starting point, but OP's not the jerk. I think the bottom line here is OP just has to stop inviting them over. This next story is from Keeping the Baby Name. Am I the jerk for not changing my baby's name at my mother-in-law's request? I don't think I'm wrong here, but my mother-in-law keeps telling my husband's family how wrong we are to name our baby after someone she hates, so I felt like sharing here. I, 33-year-old female, have been married to Scott, 36-year-old male, for about 11 years now. Together we have 2 children, Lillian, 8-year-old female, and Alexander, 5-year-old male. I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant with our 3rd child and 2nd daughter together, with a due date of August 8th. We already agreed on her name being Eliza Grace if the baby was a girl, with David Michael for a boy. Yesterday, we were at my mother-in-law's home for a family gathering. My husband and I have chosen to keep our daughter's name private from our families until her birth, and the only ones who know her name are our own children. However, while we were eating dinner, my mother-in-law asked what we were planning on naming our daughter, as I was going to remind her that we were keeping the name private until her birth. Alexander blurted out the name to my mother-in-law. I obviously couldn't get mad at Alexander, as he's only 5 and he probably forgot that he wasn't supposed to tell anyone the name. However, as soon as my mother-in-law heard the name, she went on a rant about how she has a coworker with the same name and that we should change our baby's name because it would be too confusing to know 2 people with the same name. I told her that we would not be changing our daughter's name since we'd already decided that's what her name would be, and that we didn't know that she had an evil coworker with the same name. She then began demanding that we change our baby's name, and even began suggesting other names, but we told her that we're not changing our minds about our baby's name. She then told us that she would not be talking to us anymore until after the baby was born, and that she expected an apology out of us for using the same name as someone she hates. Am I in the wrong here? OP is definitely not in the wrong here. And frankly, I'm the kind of person that if the mom said, "I deserve an apology and I'm not talking to you till the baby's here," I would personally take the stance of, alright, well I feel like I deserve the apology and you won't ever be hearing from me until you give me that apology. This next story is from Macaroon Happy 8. Am I the jerk for giving my niece some food when my brother said I shouldn't? I, male 44, was staying with my brother, male 39, for a few days. He has a 13-year-old daughter that we'll call Amy. Amy's generally a very sweet kid, but she can be a bit impolite sometimes. We were talking and she said something rude. My brother told her to apologize to me, but she refused. My brother then told her she can't have anything to eat until she apologizes. I told him to take it easy, I don't want an apology, but he didn't listen to me. She's very stubborn and wouldn't apologize and went to bed hungry. I felt bad about it, so after my brother went to sleep, I made her a sandwich. The next day, he found out about it and got really angry, said I undermined his parenting. I think the parenting was too much. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here because while I'm not one to parent other people's kids, I don't think that you should ever punish them by withholding food. Not only is that just an outright terrible way to punish somebody, but I would worry about the potential negative connotations with food that could develop in a kid. Whether that inspires them to eat way more food than they should because they're afraid it might get taken away from them, or reinforcing if they feel bad about something that they shouldn't eat anything at all. Just a terrible idea to punish them like that. This next story is from ICPineapple4613. Am I the jerk? The exhausted wife. My husband and I just got into an argument about me cleaning on Saturdays. I choose Saturdays to run all my errands and clean the house. During that time, I ask him to take care of our 3-year-old so I can continuously clean without having to stop every 30 seconds to help her out. Well, today I ran my errands and took her with me. I've also been cleaning while she runs around and I've been helping her. I got frustrated with her for walking on the floor where I just mopped, so I asked her to stop. She said, "No, I like walking on the wet floor," so I snapped at her to stop. And my husband finally decided to get off of the couch and take her to the park. As he was leaving, he told me that I chose today of all days to clean when he has a day off, to spend time together as a family, that I was selfish for taking one of my 2 days off to work to clean, and that I need to clean on a day that he's working. Mind you, he works Wednesday to Friday, and then Wednesday to Saturday every other week. This week, he didn't have to work Saturday. He works 12-hour days. I work 5 days a week in 8-hour days. I can't clean before I go to work because he's sleeping, or I'm getting myself and my daughter ready to go to work. I take my daughter to work with me. During the week, I wake up at 7 to start making breakfast. I get my daughter up to eat. While she's eating, I shower and get dressed. Then I clean her up, get her dressed, and clean up from breakfast. I offer him some food, which he always refuses, and we're out the door by 9:15. I work 10 to 6. By the time I get home at 6:30, I cook dinner, we eat as a family. I give my daughter a bath and in bed by 8:30. I clean up from dinner, take care of the dogs, clean up any mess my daughter's made, shower, and in bed by 10. I take Saturdays to deep clean the house and do laundry, and then Sundays are a day of rest so I can regenerate for the coming week. Now here's when I get pissed. While I'm at work on Monday and Tuesday, my husband's sitting on the couch sleeping or playing his video games. Saturdays he spends yelling at me for deep cleaning, and Sunday he's at a friend's house gaming. But I'm choosing one of his 2 days off to deep clean, and he has to take my daughter to the park or keep her entertained while I clean. One of his 4 days off of work, I ask him to take care of our kid. The other 3 are his, but I'm the bad guy for cleaning on Saturdays and wanting to rest on Sundays, which wouldn't even be resting. The only thing different is I don't go to work, I just stay home and play with my daughter. I think OP is definitely not the jerk, and I think the husband is playing the role of the absolutely lazy, do-nothing husband perfectly. I hope OP puts their foot down and presses this issue until they realize how unreasonable they're really being. They're only complaining because they don't get to get away with it like they do every other week. And our final story of the day is by FriendlyZombie4578. Am I the jerk for taking my grandchildren on a special trip and not taking their siblings? I lost my only son 11 years ago. He had 2 children at the time who were 3 and 4 years old. My grandchildren's mother quickly moved on and attempted to cut contact with my husband and I. We went to court and were awarded grandparents' visitation rights, which the kid's mother and her husband were very unhappy about. Immediately upon the start of our court-ordered time with our grandchildren, their mother insisted we include her husband's 2 children of the same age. We did not. It's been a constant source of tension between us, but her stepchildren are not part of our family. I don't see them as anything but strangers' children. We feel the same about the other children she has biologically. They're not our family. Our 2 grandchildren are. We were allowed to take the children for a week in the summer every year for vacation time. This year, we took them on a very fun trip to a more advanced water park they'd always wanted to go to. And then we brought them to our old home, which is where we raised their dad. It was a lovely trip, very meaningful. The kids had fun. When we all got back, complaints came from the kids' mom and her husband that we took them on such an extravagant trip and didn't attempt to include the other children. My older grandchild mentioned tension in the home after their return and said that the half-siblings were upset to have missed out on something fun. I do acknowledge these are children, so I wanted to see if people believe my husband and I are in the wrong in the dispute. I will also add, for anyone who feels it relevant, we are in no way involved in the lives of the other children. We don't include them in our family, nor do we buy them anything for any occasion. Our grandchildren have never expressed a desire to include them with us either. So personally, I think OP is clearly not the jerk. They're just not related. They've never been related. These kids have never been in the grandparents' lives per their son's contact. They've never had a link, a connection, a reason, an experience to ever treat these kids as their own grandchildren. I actually saw a video recently that made me think about this. I think it was a faked video, but the premise was a mom getting upset because their baby daddy of only one of their kids was bringing McDonald's for their one kid. There was a big giant debate in the comments about whether or not they should have offered or brought something for the other kids that weren't his. Bottom line, if it wasn't your kid, it's not your kid, never was your kid, even grandkids, you're not the jerk for only taking care of your own. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another Am I the Jerk Here story that was crazier than any of the ones in this video, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, click on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.